is where I want that to be. Yeah, I can bring it out a little more. Cool. Okay, I've had a really productive day, and I'm excited to get to stream a bit with you. I'm just pulling up all my stuff, getting everything rolling. Okay, that's good. And this is my hand floating around in the camera. Um, but yeah, okay, I posted to Instagram today. I don't normally do that, so maybe I'll see some of the people from Instagram. Normally I do kind of like a reclusive style of just you people who hop in every once in a while and no one gets notified. But I want to start doing this more often, so. But yeah, oh, that's cool. You can see my palette too. It's a bunch of papers stacked on top of each other, but this is what I'm working on today. I have a new YouTube video coming out that is sorry, I switched over to a different chat. I have a new YouTube video coming out that's a kind of like character design drawing episode. I don't know. What do you call it? YouTube videos are just YouTube videos. They're not episodic. But it's me talking about drawing characters out of your head. It's fun. But yeah. So I'm just gonna be working on this painting, and I got a lot more light in here, and it's midday, so this should be alright. Or well, I was planning on starting this midday, but I have pushed it to the afternoon, so it'll be dusk soon. We had a tornado warning all throughout Massachusetts today, which was kind of cool. We hid in our bathtub for a while with our cat, Buki, who you can get an awesome emoji for on the Discord. But yeah, it's been a really eventful day. I feel like I got a lot done this morning, and that hasn't happened all summer, so like kind of fighting through the anxiety of waking up each day. But today was like a very non-anxious day. It was really fantastic. And I haven't worked on this painting for weeks. So last night I got home and I was like kind of like driven by necessity to start working, and I was just like, I am going to make a bunch of these paintings before next week where I won't have the time to. And I was gonna stream last night, but I couldn't because I was too tired and I just wanted to zone out and paint. I've thought about doing like a mute stream where we just play like ambient music or something and just paint. No face cam. But that feels boring to me. I like talking at a camera for a while, so it's like really good practice for kind of figuring out how I want to vocalize my use of paint, and like figuring out how I want to talk about it with people. So it's nice to have conversations rather than doing like completely mute painting with a soundscape or something. But yeah, these paintings I've kind of, so a while ago I was painting some like pointillist-esque imagery. I was working with like small paintbrushes just like this, but I was working on like kind of portraits, and I painted some still lives and plants where I would just do like a grid of dots of one color, and then I would just kind of continuously like alternate through colors that I saw or that I perceived. And that was really interesting because it started to become about the mark in one moment, but then as time goes on, it starts to like the mark starts to matter less because I am making a lot of marks. And I think this is an evolution of that. I think this is also an evolution of my interest in the painter Andrew Forge, who has taught a lot of my mentors. And none of them ever have really talked about his work with me. Like, none of my mentors who were inspired or taught by said person ever taught me about his work, but I found it, and over time it keeps being revealed to me that more and more people have worked with this person who do work similar to what I do. And it's just very interesting how these kind of like veins of visual expression come out in our teachers and in the places we work, and the ways we work. Sorry, you have my back in the camera most of this stream. It's hard for me to figure out what the best way to film my easel is, so I decided if I put it like about the same place I stand, it makes it so you're not just like seeing my shoulder all the time. And since it's not like an observational work, it makes it pretty easy for me to not be like right on top of it trying to render something. I kind of step back constantly with these to see what's going on, because it's kind of easy to lose track of like the big visual movements in these works, because like, you know, there's kind of this like rolling action happening here, and before it was kind of like a spherical action, so it felt different before I started painting today, and now I've gotten it to this point, and it's probably going to feel different when I start working on a different section of it, or if I start like kind of using different colors in certain ways. It's going to start to feel even more like it's losing its form, and I like that because it kind of gives me a new way into the work. I like these paintings and these drawings because they kind of are constantly asking me a different question. Like, it never feels like it's done, and that's my favorite kind of work. For anyone who's known me a long time, that is, I never finish anything and try my hardest to make it so that I can't finish. There's not really one resolution to any of these. Right now I'm trying to figure out what exactly like the proportion and the fields of color are going to be, because at the moment it kind of has this like even dispersion of all these different like fields and values. I mean, the value scale is like, the value key is pretty established. Actually, I feel like there's like, you know, that proportion is very visible, but I don't think that I have figured out like what kind of hues exist in this place. What are you looking at? You're looking at an abstract painting. How are you, Bullseye? It's I tend to, so I used to paint a lot observationally and it would look kind of similar. But lately I've just been responding to like marks I make before and after I put my paintbrush to the page. I do a lot of like, I guess you would call it like impressionist-esque work, and this is just like an evolution of that into abstraction because it's what matters to me. I'm experimenting with colors though that I don't normally use. Like, there's a lot of white involved in this, and I don't usually mix white into my paints very much. I'm currently trying to figure out. No, I don't know what that means. Um, I tend to avoid white when I'm mixing in my palette, unless I need like a highly saturated blue or like lighter color or like highly saturated cooler color. Um, because most of the time I'll use yellow or orange to like up the intensity or the value. But these allow me to get these more like metallic colors. I like how it desaturates. Yeah. I like how it you can use it. Like oh no, that made sense. What you said. Now. um, have you ever used lead white? It's like kind of a dangerous pigment, but it's one of my favorites when I work with oils. So right now I'm working with acrylic. Um, but lead white is a transparent white that you can use to desaturate colors, and you can also use it to like affect the hue a little bit. It's a little cooler, but um, it doesn't increase the value. Yeah, it's like a gray. It's really good for making grays. So if you mix it into other colors, it's really good at because it doesn't change the value very much. It doesn't like make a color look that much lighter because it's transparent. Just because of the medium it's bound with, it makes it so that you can get like these really washed out kind of like pastel-y gray colors. I like that. I don't have it right now because I'm working in acrylic and they don't really make a good acrylic lead white, at least not that I've found. But if they did, I would use it. I like to use yellow to like change the value of colors. Um, but I think white is really good for like really specific scenarios. Oh, what'd you say? What do you think? Is it the text box? Oh yeah, I don't know why it's doing that. It just says your name over and over again because all the colors are white. I see what you mean. um, I'm just gonna turn that off for now. I have it, so I stream to both YouTube and Twitch, and a lot of times I have it up there so that people on YouTube can see the Twitch chat. But the it for some reason it's been messed up lately. I must have changed some setting, but I'll just get rid of it. Who needs it? Thank you. You can see, and then I can just iterate if anyone comes on YouTube. Yeah, for later. Thank you, though. Yeah, I was wondering if it was my settings or if everyone just had like white text lately. Because I know someone who one of the people who come by often can change the color of their text on my screen, which I haven't really thought too deeply about. um, do you paint? Um, like traditionally paint, or when you're talking about highlights and colors, like where are you coming from? You're trying digitally. Have you used? So there's this app called Heavy Poly. I don't have a mansion. This is our one bedroom apartment, but it's got a lofted bed. Um, but they are hanging around our place. Because there aren't a lot of places for you to store paintings when you make them as frequently as I do. Unless you like buy storage, but I'm not there yet. It's fun making abstract paintings though, because I haven't. Yeah, sounds good. I'll be here. I haven't made like abstract works really ever, even while I was in school and stuff like that. So it's kind of cool getting to do like getting to make myself be into this. I often feel like I have to, like I had to be an observational painter in some respects because it was like what I was interested in, which is not a bad feeling to like feel excited about doing something, but I never thought I could get into working abstractly, but I've been really into it lately. I'm trying to like fill out this blue section, this like field of blue that I see. Because there is like this kind of like cyan tan relationship starting to happen, and that's a fun color grade, so I'm okay with that. Now, now there's like this motion too because of the way I'm responding to each of these marks that's starting to like push things up this way. I wonder if I can get it to kind of like level off at a certain point. Maybe I'll use some like straight lines, some really like hard edge lines to start trying to table that. It's interesting because you can't see the whole painting right here, so there's a good like couple of inches up top above the image that you see, but this is what you get right now because I'm still figuring out how to set this, at least this new camera up. Nice. Okay, I'm getting a slightly more saturated blue. It's really hard to get like a dark, rich blue that is like these blues are really different from these blues, but they're barely changed. Like I've barely added any color to them. So it's like trying to find a balance when like building up that saturation. I check on Instagram. Trying to fill up this field a little bit. And so I have a pen drawing underneath this drawing that's like kind of guiding me, but it was like a starting place. So a few weeks ago I started this by drawing with like 10 different colored pens, and today I have been kind of like over time I've been responding to that pen drawing with paint and just kind of like, you know, following either it as an underpainting, but sometimes I have veered off and it's like started to collect this like composition of color. And I think I really like that like responsive painting aspect, like the idea that I can start somewhere and like find, it took me a really long time to search for like the pen marks and the combination of colors and find where like certain trajectories will take me, and then getting to paint over it and kind of change that, like really like flip the script on how this image reads is really exciting to have that kind of control, or like have that kind of responsive, like it feels endless, and I like being able to paint that way. I wonder if I take this whole so sometimes you can weave colors inside and outside of these, like by expanding and like shrinking your palette, like by expanding and shrinking the distance between marks. Okay, that's the words I want. You can start to make it feel as though there's like maybe a screen above something and a screen below something, so that you've got this like layering effect. It feels like something's closer and farther, like there's occlusion happening, even though all of these are kind of just like laying flat on top of each other. I got a good friend commenting that they want to come to this on my post on Instagram, and I hope they come by. Nice. Just yelled at them on Instagram, so that's great. Not yelled. Yeah, it's so weird trying to like take this like really saturated color, and if it, like I know if I desaturate the colors around it, I can create the illusion of it being this like vibrant, like local space, but I want it to be like, I want to see the relationship between two colors next to each other create that feeling, rather than have like a weak light reflection tell me, because like when you desaturate a color, it's starting to reflect more waves of light at you, which is much less direct for your eyes, so it feels different. Feels like a completely different experience if you have like pastel color next to a like super saturated vibrant color versus a like two saturated colors right next to each other that kind of like mute each other out, like if they're complements or something. It just feels completely different, and that's what I like about these paintings too, is that they like feel like something is happening. You know, you can kind of see, you can see into a space, even though it's this like flat world. All my paint is drying up. Oh, there we go. Nice. Okay. That being said, I just mixed a bunch of compliments together and threw a bunch of... Oh, thank you! How are you doing, Garrett? I am really happy to be painting on Twitch right now because I haven't done it in a long time. painting is just such a like stress for like in terms of the setup for like recording and things. Um, but it feels good. This I have this new camera mount that I can use my DSLR for, so it like has really high quality. Yeah, that's what. So this is like, if there's a painter, Andrew Forge, which normally, if this wasn't such a complex setup, I would pull them up and put them on screen. But you can look them up. There's this painter, Andrew Forge, who I'm really inspired by, and a lot of the people I've worked with and who've taught me were taught by him, like physically taught by him. And I've just noticed lately how much my work is like moved by his color use. Um, I like the kind of like collision of like all these overlapping colors. Something that I do very differently from like Andrew and other painters who paint in this kind of like pointillist manner and like paint in this like genre of really responsive color field studies is that I'm using colors that are not necessarily like things that we're used to for visual. Oh, cool. I haven't actually looked at Andrew Forge's grandson, so that's good. That's fun. Um, yeah, he's an interesting painter. He wrote a lot about like art and like has a lot of deep thoughts you can read about like the state of art. Though I do have a problem sometimes with artists of that genre and generation, just because there is this kind of like traditionalism about it, whereas like I'm very explorative. I like, I like performance art, I like dance, I like these kind of like social interactions that people have in a gallery or have in a viewer space. And painting normally, most of the time painters don't really care about any of that stuff, because painting is this kind of like traditionally reclusive, representational, narrative based genre. And I think people like Andrew Forge often wrote about it like it's like it has to be that. Though Andrew has some really good writings. If you look up his writings on Monet, they're really cool, and I think you can probably find them free on Google. I like this kind of like light blue color has been. um, I mean, I think I'd give it more description than that, but yeah. I think a lot of artists get really stuck in tradition and like rules to follow and like admiring the past. Um, so that's why I always have to give that caveat when I start talking about artists that are older. um, but yeah, this like light blue color, I think I'm gonna bring that into more of the painting. Try to get like the proportion of that color to everything else a little bit higher, because it has like a really weird feeling. It like feels kind of like fog or like something, like it's kind of taking over these areas that it exists in. I'm not sure why that's happening, but I'm cool with it. Do you watch a lot of art streams? Bullseye? I always like to ask that because it's really interesting seeing like the people who come for the art versus like maybe sometimes I am listed under the wrong tag, so that's possible too. But I'm glad you're here. Cool. Yeah, I've started watching more art streams lately. Normally I watch a lot of video game streams, like mostly like Apex Legends, and there's this game Scavengers that came out a while ago that I was really into. But I mostly stream art myself, so I've tried to get into watching more art streamers lately. But yeah, I guess I haven't in a while. IRL streams. That sounds nice. Do you have any good oh, come by for there's this one some Maddie Bear Art or something. She makes paintings and is really talented and is going, and like I had a few good conversations with her. I'm trying to think of other people, but I can't at the moment. Charles Lister I watched a bit, but sometimes I am uncomfortable watching him. Yeah. Do you have Maddie Bear? Bear. I'm not positive on that. But I think that's who. And it's like Maddie, like Maddy. Do you have any IRL streamers that you recommend? That's always been interesting to me because I feel like that's just like a fun way to interact with someone or to watch someone like do something. It's like vlogs, but real time. I honestly feel like art streams are pretty much IRL streams, but it gives me something to talk about, which makes it easier. There's one person who comes by. You watch Ginny T2I. Cool. I'll check her out. Chat is funny in IRL streams. That's interesting because, like, do IRL streamers usually like have a lot of interaction with chat, or is it more like chat interacts with itself sometimes while IRL streamers are just like talking to a camera? I like both of those scenarios, honestly, but I like to interact more. I'm a teacher in real life, so this is like another way for me to have that kind of conversation with people. I just can't get away. Oh, cool. Yeah, that makes sense. 'Cause I assume that like IRL streamers probably have pretty large audiences, for in terms of like the people who are there, or they're doing stuff like out in the world. Okay. That's funny. Mizkif, I know Mizkif a lot. I haven't watched him. I didn't realize he was like a IRL streamer. So I guess I don't know Mizkif. I just know his voice and his character. I teach college students, so like people at a university, um, and I teach kids privately sometimes and adults a lot privately. Um, Lately, it's been either through Zoom or not at all in terms of the private lessons and stuff like that. But I teach college students like at a school, which is great. It's like really rewarding to get to work at a school because it kind of has like there's a freedom working with college students that like to experiment and to like explore art more, whereas like when you work privately people want like how to do portrait painting, how to do color theory and stuff like that. No, they don't, and I wouldn't it wouldn't get them very far. I am soon to be happily married, which is exciting. We're learning our we're setting up our wedding right now, and we've been working on it like super hard all week. Mostly Kira, my fiance, has been, but uh, like a year and a half ago, a really long time ago, comparatively. Um, and next to a river in the town I grew up on, which was great. Kira was actually feeling sick, and I was gonna take us to the place that we went on our first date, but because she was feeling sick, I didn't want to drive too far, so I drove to a closer spot. And now we've been living together throughout the pandemic, which is great. Yes. Yeah, my mom really loves Kira, and I believe her parents love me, so that's great.
Of course they do.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, Kira's over on the couch right now, just uh, working on wedding stuff, I guess. Timed that comment appropriately. Not hard to do though, lately. It's interesting because when I was looking at that like kind of ephemeral color that I was talking about before, that light blue and how it was kind of like felt like fog over this area, I feel like I lost that because it's the only color up here. Like it needs the two colors to like kind of vibrate off of each other. So I'm gonna start hopping back to like those oranges and greens that I was making. Maybe I'll do a little combo, get some like really ugly green color going. That's my favorite. I like the really ugly colors. I think that's too dark, but I'm sticking with it. I always do that. I always mix a color and then it kind of I only have these two. I'd like to get more at some point. Um, I'd like to get more. These were poked by someone in the past. Um, but I just haven't gotten around to it. The older I get, the more specific I want to be about them. So I'm like, I want to like, I have this list of artists that I want to get tattoos from that I made when I was in grad school, and then I never really followed through on it because I couldn't figure out what exactly I wanted to. Come on, focus, focus. Zoom in. Okay, cool. Yeah, that would be fun. I do like maybe a big flower. Or a snake eating a flower. Those are classic tramp stamp ideas, right? I'm gonna use some water because this is all drying up. I always do this with these. So I accidentally bought these like palette pads, and I've been really liking them honestly because it's way easier than cleaning. But normally I would use like a glass palette or something for acrylic. But this tends to dry out while I'm working on it, so I have to like start scribbling around with water and like try to reactivate some of the acrylic. Or I can just use more wet paint to do that too. That's another option. It's fun because I can just get lost in like kind of the collection of marks. It's just there's so many different marks I can make because they all kind of just relate to each other once I put them down. So there's no like right way to paint this thing. There's this very like red green muted neutral tone happening over in the corner. Um, I find that happens a lot where I'll have like complements right next to each other, not intentionally, but it just happens. And it starts to like kind of flatten the image because those two colors, they don't really like play well together when you like evenly space them out. They kind of have to have a proportion against the other one, to like a larger proportion against the other one to like make an impact in terms of like defining space or like some of those visual things that we're used to. Starting to up the value of this yellow because I want to tie these two worlds together, and there's kind of this like when I was initially painting this, I started seeing like some type of like land mass, and then maybe like water down here, and then I don't know what's going on up here at all. I have no idea. But it like I was seeing these things that physically represented themselves as something else, and yeah, I don't know. Now I'm starting to lose all of that, but there is this like relationship between the light yellow down here and the green up here, which seems cool and fun. I've been using the same brush throughout the entire painting, and I've been doing that a lot for the last year. I used to kind of keep this arsenal of paintbrushes, but pretty much all of mine have been like this size lately, um, which is just interesting because I feel like as a teacher, I'm inclined to not suggest people use one brush, but it kind of like moves into like how you can use your hand to make a mark. You have like really specific techniques and styles of like laying down the brush that you can make certain lines up here. And that makes it a lot easier to like use one brush because you can really change the way you apply the paint. Right, nice. Sometimes lines come out that like tell me something new about the space, but I wasn't sure that like what they were gonna mean. But like this line right here just defined something about this like horizontal space. Like it feels like now there's like this kind of band happening, whereas before I didn't see that. I didn't see that relationship. Sometimes white will help me like balance the relationship between some of these like cooler colors and these warm greens. Like some of these greens have yellow and red mixed into them, so they're like very neutral. And that neutrality is like this really like it's leaning towards orange, you know, it's like almost a really warm color. But green tends to feel cooler to us, so it's like being able to balance that with some white and like have like grays involved, can really like start to change the feeling of like the color you're seeing. I need some blue. It's nice because I can do this with these, but I've been trying to get out of the habit of doing it because when I do it with my paintbrushes, there's like a high likelihood that I'm consuming cadmium, lead, or any of the other various toxic chemicals that I use. So I should probably not do this while I'm using acrylic, but it's a lot safer. And that's why I'm doing it. Funny sometimes too because like when I mix certain colors in with the color that I'm using right now, it starts to feel like I'm using a completely different hue. Like, you know, like using an ultramarine blue, I might mix some like Byzantium yellow or what's it? What color is this that I use? Yeah, it's bismuth yellow. But I like might start mixing some of that into the blue, and it starts to feel like it's like a cobalt. Like it's got like this weird hue that I only know from this other color I'm used to using. So it's cool how like things can change to you as you place them in context of other colors. Sometimes if you up the value or desaturate a like pink or purple or like one of these more like really short wavelength colors, so like purple and these like blues tend to all exist in this really small spectrum, whereas like reds, yellows, and like greens kind of exist on this longer band. That's why if you look at like a histogram or something, or like if you look at like a gamut of color, the blues and cooler colors all exist in this really tiny spot, and then everything else takes up a wide range of space. Sometimes if you add white to those colors in that like excess space, it starts to feel almost like plastic or like non-existent, which is really cool. I'm not doing that much here, but I was just thinking about it because of this blue that we were talking about before. I need to wash off my brush a little bit. Sorry for blocking the image. Sometimes I just take some time to like look at the painting I've created. I found a bunch of brushes. Wait, where did I put those? These brushes are really nice. They're like sign painting brushes, and I just found a bunch on the ground earlier. And then I have like a bunch of these like really cheap straw brushes. This camera doesn't focus very well at all. Let's go back to Ah. Okay, we did something. But sorry, I like recently reorganized all my streaming setup because I hadn't streamed in a while, and then I got a bunch of new equipment, and I was like, okay, I need to like reorganize things before I start back up. But now I'm still learning it. But yeah, these brushes, I'm like taking a break so that I can see it better, because sometimes you need to stop and think about like what is happening and like take a break, look away, and then come back. But yeah, these brushes I just found, and I guess they're all like cheap Michaels brushes, but they're like these tiny sizes, and I enjoy that a lot. Small brushes are my favorite. One of my professors, when I lived in Seattle, she had a porcupine quill that was attached to a cat whisker, with glue, like rabbit skin glue at the end. And this was like her brush for making really long, thin lines. It's interesting seeing it all blurred right now, so I can't see it, but if I like reel in the focus, bring it back, then it's got like all of these fields of color starting to emerge, and this kind of like cone coming out. I just had an idea. See, this is why you look away. This is why you like avert your eyes for a moment, and then you can come back in with like a clearer idea of how the colors are working, how things are relating to each other. I'm gonna completely change the structure of here. So maybe that's like more of how I look at that underdrawing. Is it's a structure for what I'm creating, like what I'm responding to. So it can become a lot of different things, while still having that understructure there to respond to. Like I often end up mimicking the marks that I drew with my pen with the paintbrush, but we can still go and kind of start to build out from like what was there. So I might start to overlap some of those marks that I created. And once you make a mark, you tend to always be responding to it. Like you're always like learning from the thing you did beforehand. That's just how we are as humans, is where like we see something and it's hard to ignore what you see in front of you. Sometimes I have really messy marks, like this late into the painting, but it's like, I don't know, at a certain point, what does it matter when it's like this abstract? I might want to go for a walk before it gets dark out, though. That sounds like a good plan. So I might wrap up soon. I don't think it'll get dark for a little while though, so maybe like a half hour more or something. But the we had like such torrential rain this morning, so it's like that probably means it's pretty nice out. Either that or really hot and gross. That's possible too. But I have a feeling it's probably really nice out. Kind of bringing some of these more saturated reds over this like green area. Trying to change some of these shapes. Would you want to go for a walk in a bit? Yeah. Nice. Yeah, I'll probably continue working on this tomorrow. It's nice being able to paint on stream because I haven't had like the space to do it really, in terms of using like my webcams. But this feels decent where it is. Like moving in front of it's a little awkward, but at least I can show you stuff. Yeah, so thank you for coming by, Bullseye and Garrett, and I'll probably be back at some point soon. Have a good night.